Every night my husband slept in our daughter's room. I ignored it until I hit a camera. When I watched the footage, I nearly passed out from horror. The footage made me drop my phone. Not because of what I expected to see, because of what I didn't. I'd been sitting on the edge of our bed at 11:47 p.m. with the bedroom door locked and my back against the headboard, watching 4 nights of recordings on a 2-inch screen with the specific, nauseating focus of a person who needs to know something and is terrified of knowing it. My hands had been shaking since I pressed play on night 3. By the time the timestamp read 2:14 a.m., and my daughter's small body sat upright in the dark, eyes wide and completely blank, lips moving against the silence of a room she appeared to be occupied by something only she could see. I was barely breathing. Then Max appeared in the doorway, and that's when I saw it. Not Max, not Emma. The corner of the room, upper left, where the shelf met the wall, where I'd stacked Emma's picture books 2 years ago and hadn't fully dressed it since. Something was there that I had not prepared. I picked my phone up off the floor, rewound, watched it again. Then I sat completely still for a long time while the house breathed around me, while Max slept on the couch down the hall because his back was killing him, while Emma slept in her room with her nightlight and her stuffed rabbit and whatever else was in that corner that I had not put there and that had been there. I understood now, for longer than 3 months, much longer. I need to tell you who I am before I tell you what I found, because who I am is the reason I found it at all. My name is Sarah Kelleher. I'm 34 years old. I work as a residential property manager for a mid-sized company in the city, which means I spend my days doing the practical, unglamorous work of keeping things functional. Maintenance schedules, tenant disputes, building inspections, the particular brand of problem solving that requires you to look at a situation without sentiment and identify exactly what's wrong and why. I'm good at it. I'm good at it because I learned, the hard way, what happens when you ignore what's in front of you because you'd rather believe a more comfortable story. Emma is 7. She came into the world during the worst year of my life, the year I finally accepted that the man I'd married at 24 was someone I could not afford to stay with. I will not describe in detail what the first 3 years of my marriage to Kyle Brennan looked like, because Emma is 7, and she will one day be old enough to read things on the internet, and I am not going to be the person who puts those words where she might find them. What I will say is that Emma has had night terrors since she was 2 years old, that she startles at raised voices, that she used to flinch when a door slammed, that she had, until recently, a therapist she saw every 2 weeks, a warm woman named Dr. Carol Ash, who had 19 years in pediatric trauma therapy, and who had helped Emma make more progress in 18 months than I'd seen in the preceding 4 years. Kyle had supervised visitation, 2 hours, every other Saturday, at a center with a family advocate present. This was the arrangement a family court judge made the Honorable Patricia D. had ordered 18 months ago, and it was, as far as I knew, the full extent of his presence in Emma's life, as far as I knew. Max Kelleher, who took my name, which still makes me smile, came into our lives 2 years ago through a mutual friend, the way good things sometimes arrive, quietly, without announcement, in a context you weren't prepared for. He's 49, 15 years older than me, a structural engineer with a calm that isn't camera, the kind of calm you build rather than inherit, the kind that's been tested and proven. He'd been divorced once, no children, and he approached the reality of Emma with the careful, patient attention of someone who understood he was entering an existing world, and needed to earn his place in it, rather than claim it. I watched him like a hawk, that's not a metaphor. I watched him the way I watch buildings I'm assessing, systematically, looking for the gap between appearance and structure, for the place where the facade doesn't match what's underneath. For the first 6 months, I had Dr. Ash check in with Emma after every visit with Max. I had conversations with Emma the way the family advocate at Kyle's center had taught me. Open-ended, unpressured, listening for what she said and also what she didn't. I noted everything. He was patient with her tantrums, soft with her fears. He learned her routines without being asked and maintained them without needing credit for it. He let her lead. He never raised his voice. When she was scared, he went still and waited, which is the exactly correct instinct and also the hardest one, and he did it naturally. After 12 months, Dr. Ash said, "I think he's good for her. I think he's genuinely good for her." After 18 months, I believed it completely. I married him in a small ceremony in May. Emma was the flower girl. She chose her own dress, yellow, with a sash she tied herself in a lopsided bow she refused to let anyone fix. She danced at the reception with the uninhibited joy of a child who feels safe, and I stood at the edge of the dance floor and watched her and thought, we're going to be okay. We're actually going to be okay. 3 months later, I bought a hidden camera at an electronics store on a Tuesday morning, alone, without telling anyone. The first sign that something had shifted was Emma, not Max. Emma. She'd been making good progress for over a year, sleeping better, startling less, the flinch at loud sounds fading. Dr. Ash had actually suggested in August that they might be able to move to monthly sessions rather than bi-weekly. Emma had started asking to have friends over. She'd started laughing more easily, the full body laugh of a child who isn't monitoring herself. Then, in September, something changed, not dramatically, not all at once. Gradually, the way a tide shifts, you don't notice each individual moment, just the accumulated difference. Emma started waking up in the night again, not screaming the way she had at 2 and 3, just waking up, going quiet, staring at the hallway like something was standing in it. She started drawing different pictures, where before they'd been bright and crowded with detail, houses and animals and people with names written above them, they became simpler, darker colors, a single figure standing in a corner said a regression could have many causes and to keep observing, and that she'd do some specific work with Emma in their next session. I told myself it was the transition. New school year, new home. Change affects children in ways that aren't always linear. I told myself this for about 6 weeks. Then I started noticing Max's side of the bed going cold at midnight. The first night I noticed, I reached across at 12:23 a.m. I know this because I'd been half awake and had checked my phone, and found his pillow empty and his side of the bed carrying the residual mark of someone who left a while ago. I found him on the couch, asleep, undisturbed. Back down, which is the position he sleeps in when his lumbar is acting up. I went back to bed, told myself back problems. He's mentioned it for weeks. The couch is firmer. This is fine. The third night I found the couch empty, kitchen empty, bathroom empty. The whole house had a quality of wrong quiet, the specific silence of a space that should have a person in it and doesn't. I stood in the kitchen doorway in the dark for a moment, and then I saw it, the thin strip of light under Emma's door. I pushed it open. Max was lying on top of the covers beside her, one arm around her shoulders, her small body curved against his side. Emma was asleep. Max was either asleep or very close to her. He jolted awake when I said his name. She had a nightmare, he said. Calm, easy. The tone of a man describing a routine, not a secret. I just wanted to be with her until she said it. The words were fine. His tone was fine. But something in my stomach turned to stone. The ancient, pre-rational alarm of a woman who has learned to take that sensation seriously. I didn't say anything that night. In the morning, I drove to an electronics store. A Blink Mini 2. That's what I bought. $34.99. Compact, white, designed to look like a phone charger adapter if you weren't specifically looking for it. I installed it myself, high in the corner of Emma's room between the bookshelf and the wall, behind a stuffed animal she hadn't touched in a year, angled toward the bed, motion activated, night vision, app controlled, viewable remotely. I told nobody. I went through Emma's room carefully before I left, straightening the bookshelf, adjusting the stuffed animal's position, making sure nothing looked different, and that's when I noticed it for the first time, or rather, noticed the absence of something. The books on the top shelf had been moved, not dramatically, not obviously, but I have a particular memory for spatial arrangement. It's part of my job, noting the condition and configuration of spaces, and those books had been in a specific order that had been consistent for 2 years. The order was different. I stood there for a moment with my hand on the bookshelf. Emma probably moved them, I told myself. I put it in the back of my mind and left the room. 4 nights of footage. Night 1, Emma sleeping, undisturbed, Max not appearing, nothing of note. Night 2, Emma stirring around 1 a.m., resettling, going back to sleep. Night 3, Emma bolting upright at 2:14 a.m., eyes wide and completely blank, not the look of someone waking from a nightmare, the look of someone who isn't fully in the waking world, her lips moving, whispering into the dark, Max appearing in the doorway 2 minutes later, crossing to her bed, leaning close, whispering back. The two of them, his large hand gentle on her back, her small body gradually going slack, in a conversation I couldn't hear on the footage. Night 4, the same. 1:57 a.m., Emma upright, blank-eyed, whispering. Max, the gentle, whispered exchange. Emma lying back down, and in the upper left corner of the frame, the thing I had not put there. I rewound the footage, leaned close, squinted at the dark, grainy corner where the shelf met the wall, behind Emma's picture books that had been moved from their usual order. A small rectangular object, black, about the size of a large thumb drive, tucked into the gap where the shelf met the wall, its face angled toward the room, pointed at Emma's bed. My Blink Mini was pointed at Emma's bed from the right side of the room. This object was pointed at Emma's bed from the left side. Someone else had put a camera in my daughter's room, and they put it there before I had. I didn't sleep that night. I know I should have gone straight to Max. Part of my brain was running that argument in real time. Tell him, confront him, ask him what this is. But another part, the part that had been burned before, said, you don't know yet. You don't know whose it is. Do not tip your hand until you know whose it is. At 6 a.m., I texted Dr. Carol Ash. I know it was early. I apologized in the text. I said it was urgent. She called me back at 6:22 a.m., and I told her, in a low voice in the bathroom with the shower running for cover, about the camera I found. Not my camera, the other one. She was quiet for 4 full seconds. Don't touch it, she said. Take a photograph of it in place. Document everything. Then call me back before you call anyone else. A pause. And Sarah, is Emma home right now? She's asleep. Keep her home from school today. I'll clear my morning. I photographed the device with my phone. 3 angles. Close up. The full corner. The positioning in relation to Emma's bed. I did not touch it. Then I went to the kitchen and made coffee and sat at the table and waited for Max to wake up. He came downstairs at 7:15, made his own coffee, sat across from me. I looked at his face, really looked, and I said, Emma's been sleepwalking. You've been in her room almost every night for the past 6 weeks. He said, no hesitation, no performance of surprise that I knew. She goes into this, I don't know exactly what to call it, not quite awake, not quite asleep. She starts talking. If you break it abruptly, she screams herself fully awake, and it takes an hour to settle her. But if you talk her through it, quietly, matching her rhythm, she goes back under in about 15 minutes. He looked at me steadily. I should have told you. I didn't want to scare you before I understood what was happening. That was wrong. I'm sorry. He was calm. He was direct. He answered before I'd finished the sentence. He did not ask how I knew. Why didn't you wake me? I said. I tried the first 2 nights. You were so deep asleep. You've been exhausted. And Emma was calming down. I made the wrong call. I should have woken you anyway. He put down his coffee cup. I was going to tell you this weekend. I wanted to have Dr. Ash's input first. I looked at him for a long time. Max, I said, have you been in her room beyond those visits? During the day? He frowned. No. Why? Have you touched her books? The frown deepened. What's going on? I showed him the photograph on my phone. His face did a thing I've never seen it do. The calm went out of it completely. Not into panic, not into guilt, but into a stillness so complete it was almost frightening. He stared at the photograph for a long time without speaking. Then he said very quietly, where is Emma right now? Asleep. He stood up. I'm going to stand outside her room right now until you tell me otherwise. He walked out of the kitchen and down the hall, and I heard him stop outside Emma's door. And I heard nothing else because there was nothing else. Just a man standing guard over a child while I sat at a table and understood something was very wrong in a direction I hadn't anticipated. Dr. Carol Ash, 19 years in pediatric trauma therapy, met us at her office at 9:30 a.m. Emma came with us, which I'd handled carefully, framing it as a surprise visit, a Tuesday adventure, stopping for the muffins Emma liked from the bakery near the office. Emma, in the back seat, had been quiet in the particular way she gets when she's reading adult energy and trying to calibrate to it. You okay, Bug? Max said, turning from the passenger seat. My tummy feels swimmy, she said. Mine too, he said. You know what fixes swimmy tummies? The muffins? Definitely the muffins. She smiled. Small, but real. I kept my hands steady on the wheel. At the office, Dr. Ash took Emma into the playroom with an assistant, a warm, capable woman named Brianna, who Emma knew and liked, while Dr. Ash reviewed my camera footage on her laptop. Max and I sat in the consultation room. He hadn't touched me in a performative way, hadn't reached for my hand, or made a production of reassurance. He just sat upright, present, with the stillness of a man who is processing something and isn't going to regret it otherwise. Dr. Ash watched the full 4 nights without comment. When she finished, she leaned back. The sleep behavior, she said, is consistent with what we call parasomnia, specifically a dissociative episode layered over the night terror pattern I've been tracking with Emma. It's not uncommon in children with her history. She glanced at Max. What you're doing with her, the quiet verbal engagement, matching her register, guiding her back, that is actually the correct clinical response. How did you know to do that? I looked it up, Max said. After the 3rd night, I read everything I could find. Dr. Ash looked at him for a moment, then at me. I want to talk about the device, she said. I showed her the photograph. She studied it. Her expression was careful and controlled in the way of a professional who is not going to let me see her react before she has processed it. I want to bring someone in, she said. I have a relationship with a detective in the Family Crimes Unit. Her name is Detective Angela Torres. She's been in child protective cases for 11 years. I want her to see this before you remove or report it through a general channel. Why through her specifically? I asked. Because if this device belongs to who I think it might belong to, Dr. Ash said, you want someone in that unit holding this case, not a general patrol report. Someone who understands custody situations and can manage this properly. She paused. Sarah, has Kyle had any unsupervised contact with Emma in the past 3 months? The swimmy feeling Emma had described in the car arrived in my own stomach. Not that I know of, I said. The supervised visits. They're still happening at the center every other Saturday. And Emma hasn't mentioned Kyle coming to the house, calling her phone, anything outside the scheduled contact. Emma doesn't have a phone, I said. Dr. Ash nodded slowly. I'd like to do a brief focused session next morning, just the 2 of us, with your permission. Of course, she said, then stopped, turned back. There's one more thing I want to show you before I go in with her. She turned her laptop screen toward me. I went back through the footage we sent, frame by frame, around the device. She zoomed in on the upper left corner, not on the device itself, but on the shelf around it. The photograph of the corner that I'd taken on my phone was one image. The video footage from my Blink camera was another, longer, more detailed. Dr. Ash had exported a still from approximately 11 days ago, before I'd installed my own camera, when Max's body briefly came close to that corner of the room on one of his nighttime visits. The still showed the shelf behind him clearly. The device had not been there 11 days ago. It had been placed in the room in the past 11 days, during a period when the only outside visitor to our house had been Kyle for his one supervised call. No, wait, not a call, not supervised. I thought back. 8 days ago, on a Wednesday, Emma's school had called to say she'd left her lunchbox, and could someone pick it up? Max had been in a site meeting. I'd been 40 minutes away at a property walkthrough. We'd called Kyle's mother, Diane Brennan, who occasionally provided backup childcare by court agreement. Then she picked Emma up from school, brought her home with the key I'd given her for emergencies, and stayed for 2 hours until I got back. Kyle's mother, with a key to my house, with access to Emma's room. The device had been placed in my daughter's room by someone who had access to my house, and the only person with authorized access, besides Max and me, was a woman whose son had supervised visitation, and a family court file thicker than a novel. Detective Angela Torres, 11 years in the Family and Child Crimes Division, arrived at Dr. Ash's office at 11:15 a.m. She was compact, unhurried, with eyes that cataloged everything in a room in the first 30 seconds, and then stayed focused on you with the specific attention of someone who has learned that the person in front of them is always the most important data point. She looked at the photograph, she looked at the video footage. She asked me 37 questions. I counted in that dissociated way you count things when you need something to focus on. About Diane Brennan's visit, about the key, about the court-ordered contact arrangement, about Kyle's history. Then she made a call. I'm going to need your permission to recover the device through proper chain of custody, she said. That means I come to the house with a collie. We document in place, photograph, and log the recovery, and we take it into evidence. Whatever is on it becomes part of a formal case file. Yes, I said. Once we have the device, I'll also need to pull Kyle Brennan's current status, any probation conditions, any contact order violations. If this device was placed with his knowledge or at his direction, that's a criminal matter, not just a custody violation. She looked at me steadily. I want to be honest with you. The device itself will tell us a lot, but proving who placed it and at whose direction takes time. I need you to be patient and to let me do this correctly. I know how evidence works, I said. I've been through a custody proceeding. I know what chain of custody means. Do it correctly. She nodded once. We'll be at your house at 2 o'clock. I looked at Max, who had been sitting in the corner of the consultation room for the past hour, completely still, listening to everything. We should get Emma her second muffin, he said. Here is what the device turned out to be. A SpyVision V3 micro camera, available for $67 online. Two-way audio enabled, meaning it could transmit sound in both directions. It had a SIM card slot and had been recording continuously for 22 days and transmitting live audio to a paired device. Detective Torres had the technical analysis completed within 48 hours through the department's digital forensics unit, led by a specialist named Officer Ben Reyes, 6 years in digital evidence recovery. The transmission logs on the SIM showed a consistent receiving number. The number was registered to a prepaid phone purchased at a convenience store in Cache. The convenience store had cameras. The cameras showed Kyle Brennan purchasing the prepaid phone 14 days before the device was placed in Emma's room. He'd been listening to my daughter's sleep for 3 weeks. He'd been listening to her night terrors, her whispering episodes, to Max talking her back down from the edge of them. He'd been sitting somewhere, his apartment, his car, wherever, with a phone pressed to his ear, listening to everything that happened in his daughter's room, in violation of a court order that restricted his contact to 2 supervised hours every other Saturday. That was the horror. Not Max, not the midnight visits, not anything I had feared. It was the man I'd divorced, the one I thought was contained, the one the court had measured and managed, and I believed, in my exhaustion and my hope, was behind a wall that would hold. He'd been in my daughter's room every night without ever leaving his apartment. Detective Torres arrested Kyle Brennan on a Thursday morning, 18 days after I sat on the edge of my bed and dropped my phone. The charges: unlawful surveillance of a minor, violation of a protective order, criminal harassment. Torres told me, when she called with the news, that the DA's office was reviewing whether the two-way audio element, the transmission capability, supported an additional charge. She also told me something that I've thought about every day since. In the recordings from the device, she said, the earliest ones, there are a few nights where Emma is whispering in her sleep, and the device picked up something that came back through the transmission, a voice, his voice, talking to her through the speaker while she was in a dissociative state. I sat down. He was talking to her through it, I said. We can't confirm she was consciously hearing it, but yes, the audio shows him speaking to her through the live feed. During her episodes, Emma had been whispering to something invisible in the corner of her room. She'd been whispering to her father, and the reason Max's gentle, quiet voice had been bringing her back, the reason the episodes had been lasting longer and happening more frequently, was that she'd been responding to something real, something transmitting into the darkness of her room, a voice she'd been trained since toddlerhood to be afraid of, speaking to her from the corner she'd been staring at since September with wide, blank eyes. She hadn't been seeing something that wasn't there. She'd been hearing something she couldn't explain. I sat with Dr. Ash for an hour after I heard this, not talking about evidence or charges or what came next, just sitting in her consultation room with the box of tissues on the table between us that I had needed and used and was not embarrassed about. She didn't know what it was. I said at some point. She couldn't have known. No, Dr. Ash said. Children in that kind of dissociative state don't process the way we would. She heard something. Her nervous system recognized something, and she responded to it. And Max, talking her down, replaced it, gave her a safer voice to follow. A pause. He was protecting her, without knowing exactly what he was protecting her from. I thought about the nights he'd been on the couch. Not by choice. I'd eventually understood that he'd moved there specifically so he could hear Emma's door, because the bedroom was too far down the hall. He'd positioned himself between her room and the rest of the house. He'd done this without explaining himself, without taking credit, without asking for anything from me except patience I'd been rationing. I called him from Dr. Ash's parking lot. He answered on the first ring. She's safe, I said. I know, he said. She's here. She was. I could hear her in the background asking Max something about whether there was more of the pasta from last night, in the voice of a child who was home and fed and at ease. I owe you an explanation, I said. You owe me nothing, he said. You were protecting her. That's all you were doing. The tears came back, and I let them, because I was in a parking lot and no one was watching, and sometimes the body needs to finish what it started. The family court hearing was 4 weeks later. Judge Patricia Dean, the same judge who had ordered the supervised visitation 18 months ago, presided. Kyle's attorney attempted several arguments. Detective Torres testified. Officer Ben Reyes testified about the device and the transmission logs. Dr. Ash testified about the impact on Emma's sleep, the regression, and the specific nature of what the audio transmission evidence suggested about the logs. Kyle's Max's attorney said his client had only been trying to maintain a connection with his daughter. Judge Dean looked at him over her glasses for a long moment. Then she terminated supervised visitation pending a full psychological evaluation, issued a no-contact order, and referred the criminal case to the DA's office for expedited review. She also, in language I will remember for the rest of my life, noted on the record that the party responsible for Emma's care and safety in this situation had been her stepfather, whose thoughtful and child-centered response to a distressing pattern had, in the court's view, likely prevented significant additional harm. Max was sitting in the gallery. He didn't react. Afterward, in the corridor, I stood next to him while he looked at the floor with the focused, quiet expression he gets when he's processing something. She said, "Stepfather," I said. "I heard. How does that feel?" He thought about it. Genuinely thought, in the way he does. Like something that was already true, he said, got written down in the right place. Emma started sleeping through the night again in November. Not immediately after the device was removed. There was a period of adjustment, a few weeks of transition, the particular recalibration of a nervous system that has been under a stress it didn't have language for. Dr. Ash adjusted the work she was doing with Emma. I sat on the floor of Emma's room some evenings and read to her, just to give her body the memory of that space being safe again. Max started leaving the bedroom door open at night so Emma could see the light from the hallway if she woke. She stopped drawing the figure in the corner. She started drawing houses again, big ones, crowded with detail. A figure she'd labeled Max in her kindergarten-era printing that she was slowly growing out of. A figure labeled Mom. A smaller figure labeled Emma in between them, all three holding hands. I found this drawing on the refrigerator one morning while I was making coffee, and I stood in front of it for a long time. The camera I'd bought from the electronics store, the $34.99 Blink Mini 2, I took down from Emma's room in December. I didn't need it anymore. I'd found what I was looking for, and it hadn't been what I'd feared. And the fear itself had done something useful. It had made me look closely at a corner of the room I might not have examined otherwise. Mothers who have been burned learn to look at corners. Sometimes what they find there is something that was put there to hurt them. Sometimes what they find is the proof that the people they love most were watching over their children all along, in the quiet dark, without requiring anyone to know about it. I was wrong about Max. I was right to look. I would always rather be wrong about a person I love than miss something that threatens the person I love most. That is not a comfortable position to hold. It requires you to live with a permanent low-level vigilance that can exhaust you. But the alternative, the comfort of decided trust, the ease of not looking, cost me 3 years of my life the first time, and almost cost Emma something I don't want to name. So I look. I will always look. And now, when I check the corners of Emma's room, they're empty. She's safe. That's all that matters. Kyle Brennan pled guilty to unlawful surveillance and violation of the protective order in February. The additional charges were subsumed into the plea agreement. He is currently serving an 18-month sentence with mandatory evaluation and treatment as conditions of any future contact petition. Diane Brennan's key was recovered. She was not charged. Her involvement appeared to be unknowing. The use of her access made without her understanding of the purpose. I have complicated feelings about this. I am working through them with Dr. Ash. Emma's sessions with Dr. Ash are now monthly. She has 2 close friends at school. She slept 11 hours last Saturday and woke up asking for pancakes, with the focused, pleased energy of a child who has no interest in yesterday. Max started teaching her to identify structural elements in buildings when they're out walking. She points at things now, load-bearing walls, arch supports, the bones of things, and names them with the cheerful authority of a 7-year-old who has been given a secret vocabulary. Last week, she pointed at our house from the driveway and said, "That one's well built." Max looked at me over her head. "Yeah," he said, "it is. If you made it to the end, you sat with me through the worst of it. You deserve to know. She's okay. We're okay. Hit like if you stayed. The corners are empty now."